Good morning, folks. As time goes by, one of the more reprehensible traits of human beings, Homo sapiens, just seems to keep coming out. One of the really great things about America for centuries has been that we are not the product of our ancestors. What I mean by that is not DNA. Obviously, our deoxyribonucleic acid comes from our ancestors, and many of our cultural norms, of course, our language, our traditions, our faith, come from our ancestors. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the misdeeds of ancestors. Every community of human beings has ancestors that did something horrible, some in the more recent past than others, like Rwanda or Nazi Germany. But you are not responsible for that. Applying that to your generation, to you as a person, simply because of your skin color, your faith, your national identity, your ethnic orientation, is the term collective guilt. The Germans, for decades, shamed themselves because of what happened under the Nazis. But Germans born in 1945 and since had nothing to do with that. We often hear the nonsense in America that generational wealth is a bad thing. Yet we find groups that make that argument seeking generational wealth. What they really want is a transfer of wealth from people who've earned it to people who haven't earned it, on the basis that somehow the current generation was denied some sort of opportunity. This comes to the front, especially in modern South Africa, a country where racists and bigots consistently run around, including the heads of major political parties, and blame people for the sins of others that occurred in the past, and making ludicrous claims that, as a consequence of that the current generations deserve to be punished. This is not equality. This is retribution. And the retribution is taken out on people who committed no offense. This is a consequence of bigotry and racism. It's unacceptable, and no right-minded person should accept it. Taking advantage away or hampering someone because of the actions of others in the past is illegitimate, unless those people profited from that. That's an argument we can make on this. The bold, wild, ludicrous claim that white South Africans are wealthy is utterly ridiculous. I can point to starving white South Africans, many of whom are starving as a consequence of no longer living under a system in which the National Party conferred privilege upon its favorite ethnic group, Afrikaners. As a consequence, many people in that community were guaranteed government jobs, but the good news for them and society is that most of them were qualified for the jobs they got. Unlike today, when the government of the day does the exact opposite by conferring advantage on people who have darker skin pigmentation in order to level the playing field. But folks, that's not how you level the playing field. In America, we had racist federal law for decades in clear violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. The Supreme Court, under Warren Burger, was in violation of the Constitution. Their history is not a good one. They created things like affirmative action and reinforced that after Congress passed laws allowing for the discrimination of majority Americans because of the past. I wasn't born into a racist society with Jim Crow laws, yet I had to live with the consequences of other people getting advantage because of their skin color. That was wrong in the past. It's wrong in the present. You never give people advantage or take things away from them based on immutable factors. You don't select your eye color or your skin pigmentation or your height. You can control your body weight to some degree, but many things are immutable. You can control your faith. If your faith falls out of favor, you can change to a different faith. You can move to a new location. You can even begin to associate with a different ethnic group, should you decide, if that group accepts you. But you cannot change your skin pigmentation. Your DNA decides that. And to confer advantage for people because they're black or because they're white is morally reprehensible. By the same token, even worse, is to take things away from groups of people based on that is morally reprehensible. And in today's modern South Africa, listening to the rhetoric about, well, this is to right the wrongs of the past, it isn't. Things like broad-based black economic empowerment have not uplifted or enriched black South Africans. It's impoverished them. by denying proper services to citizens because the government will only give these contracts to companies that are owned by majority black ownership, many of whom are fictitious or incompetent and certainly not the best bidder. The best qualified bidder with the best product with the lowest reasonable price should be the winner of any contract to provide services to the people who are paying with their taxes. But that has not been the position of the government of South Africa, and they have doubled down on that, with their racist laws continuing broad-based black economic empowerment. Much like the affirmative action laws here in America, it's morally reprehensible, and it does not right the scales. It simply perpetuates racism and bigotry and divides society. Absolutely the case. Collective guilt is morally shameful, yet collective guilt is the order of the day in South Africa. And under Barack Hussein Obama, and then again under Joseph Robinette Biden, that was the goal in America by political leftists, to shame people. It used to be class warfare, but class warfare doesn't work anymore. Many Americans are upwardly mobile based on their experiences, their talent, their education, their drive, their enthusiasm, their entrepreneurialism. You can rise from the poorest of poorest Americans to become the wealthiest of Americans. We see it frequently. Despite the lies that that the middle class is static or it's shrinking, you have upward and downward mobility in society if you fail. And that's the magic of it. And that's the way things should be. None of this nonsense that we see in South Africa that's perpetuated with class envy and then race envy. When class envy began to fail for the Democrats and liberals back in the 1960s, no longer worked, they switched to race envy. And race envy has become the order of day since the 1960s. Throughout my entire life, I watched this disgusting, vile, repulsive behavior in turning black people into victims in America and in South Africa. South Africa's black population is not a victim any longer. It's been under ANC rule for over 3 decades. The ANC needs to take responsibility for its failures and stop dividing people based on race.